Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today at our presentation. Today, we'll be discussing the CADFP Convocation, which is taking place later this year, as well as the future of the CADFP program. My name's Randy Butler, and I am a program specialist at IIE, and we implement the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program, which is sponsored by the Carnegie Corporation of New York. I see a question just pop up here. How long will the session be? We plan for this presentation to be an hour, and we are recording this presentation, and the recording will be shared out later today with everyone who registered. So that's a great question to start us off. Just some Zoom basics. This Zoom is set up in a webinar format, so you won't have the ability to turn on your camera or talk unless we turn on the audio, but you should be able to see and hear us, and to communicate with us, you can type into the chat. I do see someone saying, doesn't seem the sound is on. If you can hear me, if you can please type into the chat that you can hear. We did an audio test before the presentation and folks could hear. So I see someone. Yes, people are saying they can hear. So if you can't hear me, you want to check your own audio settings, perhaps turn up your volume or reconnect to the audio. Great. I see lots of comments coming in that they can hear. Perfect. So if you have questions throughout today's presentation, please type those into the chat box, which may be showing on your side as a Q&A box, but you can type those questions in. We'll be collecting those questions and sharing them out to our advisory council panelists a little bit later in the program. And then, as I mentioned, this presentation is also being recorded and will be shared out. So to get us started, I would like to first welcome our Senior Director of Corporate and Foundation Programs at IIE. Her name's Mary Karen McKee, and she'll be discussing a bit about the final phase vision of the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program. So Mary, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Randy, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's great to see almost 200 folks tuning in to this webinar. As Randy said, I lead our corporate and foundation programs team and our student emergency initiatives here at IAE. And the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program has been within my team and my purview almost since its inception, probably for the last 8 years or so. So many of you remember Jeremy Coates. You all know Randy Butler, who just introduced herself, and then Chris Carson, who's behind the scenes. So we are the small but mighty team at IIE that work with our esteemed advisory council and all of our fellows, alumni, host institutions to really bring this program to life. And I think, we wanted to kick off this this new phase of the program with a conversation. You may have all seen in our alumni newsletter that went out at the end of February that we are entering the final phase of CADFP as it is, meaning, we have received the last grant from Carnegie Corporation of New York for this program. They've been long committed to higher education in Africa, and we're really grateful for the support they've provided throughout the 10 plus years of this program. And, over the years, there's been a lot of conversation about sustainability of the program. The alumni convocation, I know, focused a lot on sustainability, and now is really the time. And so with this final grant from Carnegie Corporation of New York, we really want to work together with you all, with the advisory council, with Carnegie, to lay the foundation for what is next. I think that we all should be very proud of the nearly 1,500 hosts and fellows over the course of the program, with collaborations at more than 200 host institutions in 11 countries. And so I think it's not so much about sustainability, because many of your collaborations are in fact sustainable. Many of you have been collaborating with one another, both before your fellowships and following your fellowships. And I think this next phase is really about, how to create a potential new entity, how to carry forward this program, without primary funding from Carnegie Corporation of New York. And so we've been talking really closely with the advisory council, and we hope to talk more and with alumni, but we hope to really broaden the conversation with alumni as we move into this next phase. And so really, this final phase, this final grant from Carnegie Corporation is really about honoring, what's come before, honoring and recognizing all of the partnerships that have been developed, working to sustain those collaborations, transitioning the leadership of the program from IIE to the advisory council and the alumni community and host institutions. And, our plans are quite ambitious, and also I think quite doable, which is really establishing a new entity, which the advisory council and alumni, you all will lead that process. IAE is here to kind of support you along the way. But these are just sort of some thoughts around this next phase. And throughout this webinar and kind of in the lead up to the end of the 18-month period, we expect there will be many ways for you to be involved. The convocation, which we'll talk about later, is one of those ways, but not the only way, of course. So with that, I will turn it back over to Randy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Next, I would like to introduce one of our advisory council members who is joining us today, and she'll be sharing a bit more about sustainability of the future of the program and New Horizons. I would like to welcome Dr. Philomina Okeke-Ihejirika. She is a full professor in the Women's and Gender Studies Department of the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. Her areas of expertise include gender and higher education in Africa and African international migration, and her research, teaching, and other professional activities contribute to a wide array of scholarly forums, embracing a broad network of academic institutions, scholars, and international agencies, including Carnegie Corporation of New York, Council for the Development of Economic and Social Research in Africa, and government departments in Canada and Nigeria. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Phil, and I'll hand it over to you now to speak more about sustainability and New Horizons of the program looking forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. As you can see, and greetings to everyone. Greetings from Nigeria, where I am hanging out at this point. It's really a very exciting time that we are entering into. And I really want to say shout out to the alumni for all that you have been doing. The impact of this CADFP as it enters its next phase, the impact is mind-boggling if you think of what has already been achieved, not just in terms of the numbers of fellows, but also in its domino effects, programs developed, programs expanded, ongoing scholarly relationships, funding for research projects, labs and libraries enriched well beyond the fellowship period. That is why the prospect of a new entity is very exciting. But the CADFP, as it comes to an end, I guess we are now in its final phase. We must think about the future. But we start with celebrating its accomplishments and legacy, And then with the support of the program's advisory council and alumni, want to plan for its transition into its next phase. The CADFP Council has really been discussing the establishment of a new entity on and off over several years, and even made attempts at certain points to register the entity as the current council has reviewed these attempts. It has taken up the mantle, exploring legal and administrative structures suitable for the new entity, terms of reference, physical locations in the continent and in diaspora, and potential approaches to establishing a solid funding base. To this effect, the Advisory Council has developed a strategic document for potential future steps and are now in the process of selecting a consultant team that will assist in bringing the vision of a new entity to fruition. This independent fellowship awarding body that we are envisaging will be Pan-African, grounded in principle and structure in the basic tenets of equity, diversity, and inclusion, prioritizing gender, and extending its reach across all African regions. We envision an entity that projects Africa as a stakeholder in knowledge production, targeting existing gaps, including the STEM fields. By the end of the one-year transition period, we envisage that the new entity's portfolio of services and activities will be set up to commence the award of fellowships with its legal and operational framework as well as administrative staff. The potential is huge and its possible ramifications are immense. But we know, of course, that this vision hangs on an innovative, dynamic, and across-the-board fundraising agenda, one that will propel broad and long-term endowment funding. Thus, the challenge rests on us, African scholars, particularly CADFP's dynamic alumni, professionals, and benefactors who stand on good footing to boldly affirm the importance of this next phase. The Advisory Council will be holding a strategy meeting in Oxford, UK on June 25th to 26th in 2026 to further the implementation steps towards setting up this new entity, as well as in preparation for the convocation ceremony that will take part later this year, the final event of CADFP. The new entity, of course, will be central to our deliberations. I want to also again claim and thank the alumni that have really carried the torch. And we hope that we will all work together towards this vision to see whatever we can do to push it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Next, I would like to welcome two more of our attending advisory council members who are joining us here today, Dr. Kefa Otiso and Professor Alfred Shitandi. Dr. Otiso is Professor of Geography in the School of Earth, Environment, and Society at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio, in the United States. He has a PhD in Urban and Economic Geography from the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities, United States, an MA from Ohio University in the United States, and a bachelor's degree from Kenyatta University in Kenya. His research interests are in urbanization, international migration, socioeconomic development, governance, and cultural change in the context of Africa and North America. And he teaches various geography and environmental courses, such as urban, economic, population, cultural, world regional, and environmental planning. We're also joined we're joined by Professor Shitandi, who's joining us from Kenya. And as founding director of research at Kisii University, he successfully coordinated the establishment of the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program at Kisii University, and that has attracted several international African scholars from the diaspora to Kisii, Kenya, over a 10-year time frame. He has been engaged in research management, providing support to multidisciplinary researchers for more than 20 years, and has a long-term interest in building positive relationships in international education. He is a professor of microbiology with a doctorate and an MSc degree from SLU Uppsala, Sweden, as well as a degree in biology and biological education from Kenyatta University. So I'd like to welcome all three of our advisory council members here, and we're going to have a roundtable discussion that will be facilitated by Dr. Philomina Okeke-Ihejirika. So I'd like to hand it back to her to continue this discussion where we'll hear the perspective of the Advisory Council on the future of the strategic partnerships, sustainability, and alumni involvement and inclusion.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. I don't know if we could I think I will keep my camera closed because of reception.
Perfectly fine.
Welcome, Alfred and Kefa, to this very brief roundtable. As Randy pointed out, we are going to have just a very brief discussion on from the Advisory Council perspective on this matter of strategic partnerships, sustainability, and alumni involvement. I think perhaps we begin our conversation with asking you actually to share your thoughts on what is emerging. I would like you to pick out of the three, just start with where your thoughts lead you. You finish, and I'd say, Kefa, you start first of all to share your thoughts on one entity, and then Alfred, you pick the next one, and we go that way so that we are mindful of time. So Kefa, we start with you.
Yeah, thank you, Phil, and thank you everyone for making the time to be here. I'd like to start by associating myself with the other remarks that have been shared by the other participants and other panelists so far. And I'm excited about the new phase that the program is entering. I think many of us know that there have been a number of similar entities in the past and initiatives, but they have ended up not being sustainable for any number of reasons. And I think I'm pleased that we are considering the sustainability of this program even as it ends. In the end, I think the importance of sustainability is to make sure that the gains that have been made and the initiatives that we have launched through this program will actually be there for the next generation. What I'm thinking about in this particular juncture is there have been many narratives of Africa rising, among other things. But you know, what we forget when we look at countries like China and Asia in general, and where they have actually arisen, in terms of economic development, what you recognize is actually mostly the role of the diaspora, among other things, and how it has been able to interact and network with the scholars and people in the home countries. And I think this is a very good juncture for us as a diaspora and those scholars who are on the African continent to actually have an entity like this that enables us to collaborate and actually move the continent forward. The African continent has not done as well when it comes to using its diaspora. The African Union has made a lot of pronouncements in terms of how the diaspora can make an impact on the continent. But if you look across the continent, most African countries are mostly interested in the financial remittances from the diaspora. But many of us on this call know that actually the bigger impact is not financial remittances, it's actually the other types of remittances, including skills, and some of the attendant changes that come about when people in diaspora and those on the continent actually collaborate. And I see this as one of the programs that is actually particularly going to enable the diaspora to do that. Whenever you ask our governments in Africa why they, diaspora is not as heavily involved, they end up giving any number of reasons, but many of you know that there are a number of legal, political, and other challenges, and even power struggles, quite frankly, between diaspora and people on the continent, especially the elites on the continent. And I think what is unique about this program is the fact that the diaspora itself is heavily involved in actually structuring how it's going to work. And it has already demonstrated that actually when you have a well-structured program, it can actually lead to very good results. And I think this is why I'm excited about the new initiative and or at least continuation of the same through a new entity that is going to enable us to ensure that the program is sustainable, keep the partnerships going forward. And I'm sure, as you know, there will be a publication that would kind of end up, capturing the history of this program. I think whatever even is going to be published will actually be a small segment of the actual impact of the program. And I look forward to, being a part of this, new entity and what it's going to do to actually improve the higher education landscape across Africa. As I conclude, I also want to mention that, as you know, if you look at, for example, the models of Asia Rising, you also see academia being central in that particular project. And I don't see that happening in Africa without the involvement of higher education. If we get higher education right, we'll actually get a lot of things right. And I think these are my initial remarks in terms of why I'm excited about the new entity and why I'm actually excited about the things that we've been able to achieve and the greater things that actually will achieve in days to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Kefa. Definitely a lot has been achieved. And as you pointed out, this program has huge potential. Carnegie has actually unfolded the structures so that we're not developing something that is completely brand new. We have steps behind us to follow. And if we think of some of the people that will be involved and some of where we can go, it is mind-boggling. The excitement is huge. But then, as you pointed out, grounding it in the continent and having that cooperation to move forward is a huge challenge. But I will wait to hear what Alfred has to say. Alfred, if you could talk a little bit about okay, just say
thank you, Phil, and everyone who is here. Equally feel very honored to be part of the transition at this stage, and again, equally aligned to what Phil has already indicated, and Kefa too. Just to add on the component that of course the future sustainability of the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship Program, as we are envisioning it, is increasingly anchored in the alumni network, and that's the composition which is here. Kefa, of course, indicated we will be interested in the wider diaspora, but I think the alumni, as we are constituted here, have this opportunity to be the drivers, the ones who can support the movement going forward across our continent, and so I think this is an opportunity which we are very optimistic that the alumni will be a very part of preserving the decade accomplishments which we have achieved, and also be part of planning and being involved in a sustainable way together with the advisory councils in what we are currently engaged in. And so we are very optimistic that us as the alumni will look for these opportunities to enhance and make stronger the ties between home and the host institutions which they represent, and also any other possibilities. And again, just like Kefa said, it may not necessarily be tied to the component of monetary directly, but we feel that the expertise represented have a very important role in the future activities. If we leverage on the B-wide network of over close to 1,000, I think, diaspora and host fellows who can serve as resources. And of course, for us, like me, who is based in the continent, looking at the possibility of domestication so that we then can shift this responsibility for sustainable partnerships to our own African host institutions rather than external reliance. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and we are very excited and looking for that possibility of engagement. That's what I could say at the onset. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you very much, Alfred. Certainly, the alumni has a huge role to play here in terms of their expertise, the linkages they have developed. There's a lot of legwork to be done, but they are already strategically located to push this forward. And even as a force on their own, we're all part of the alumni, by the way. I am part of the alumni. There is so much, if I think of some of the insights that could come from the alumni, because we're looking at a program that really requires quite a good deal of innovation. Looking at some of the challenges that Kefa raised. If you look at it, actually sustainability is very much tied to strategic partnerships in a situation where you don't really have a lot of very strong roots in terms of who is going to service this program, who is going to fund this program in the continent. We are going to find that we are going to establish, we're going to find. It is time to begin to examine strategic partnerships, both the financial ones, and some of them are actually policy driven, but really to think. I think this time to think outside the box of what we can do, because sustainability is something that we need to take both beyond the continent. How are we going to ground this program? Where do we find our support systems? It looks like the support systems will come both within and outside Africa. We need to think outside the box. We need to think of who our partners will be. We need to think of who the allies will be in a continent where a lot of people are not thinking too much about higher education, where some might even see it as a luxury, where they might not see the connection between higher education and food on the table. We really need that wider partnerships to be able to drive the message home and begin to get support and also get some of the pockets loosened. I think we will leave it here for now because the alumni and other participants here do have questions to ask. Thank you. Randy, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for those insights. There is so much interest coming into the chat and the question box to know more. And we will get to a Q&A discussion in just a couple of minutes to talk more about the future as well as this fall's convocation. But next, I'd like to bring Mary back into the conversation, and she's going to provide us with just a brief overview about the convocation that's happening later this fall, which we are so excited about for the opportunity to connect with alumni in person in Ghana. So Mary, I'll hand it over to you to provide some information about what's going to be going on this fall.
Great. Thanks, Randy. And thank you to our esteemed advisory council, Phil, Kefa, Alfred, for your contributions really throughout. And for those of you who don't know, we have 3 additional advisory council members who no doubt you'll be hearing from through the course of the next year or so. So, as we were thinking about this final phase and thinking about proposal to Carnegie Corporation of New York, we really wanted to, as I said, celebrate and honor the legacy of CADFP. And we thought there would be no better way to do that than through a convocation on the continent. And we're looking to get people together in November of 2026. The timing is such that it will be towards the end of this final grant from the corporation, but at the same time, hopefully at the beginning of something that some continuation. So I think that it's really an opportunity to both celebrate the legacy and launch what's coming in the future, a future roadmap. And so you'll hear a bit more from Randy on the details. We are conscious that we're not able to support everyone's physical presence at the convocation, and so we'll work very closely with our partner who's helping us design the convening, the Association of African Universities, on providing a hybrid opportunities so that really we can have full participation in this event. And as many of you know, they worked with us on the alumni convening, which was a fully virtual event. And so we're hopeful that that there will be opportunities to engage throughout, even if you're not physically present. And the convocation itself is really, it's a participant-driven event. We've envisioned, you leading, proposing sessions, workshops, activities. So it will be what the participants contribute, and Randy will share a little bit more detail about how we'll go about that process. But we look forward to engaging with you fully throughout the process and the lead up to the convocation. So we see it as not just being chosen to attend the convocation and then showing up, but really between the time that you are selected and the convocation, working quite regularly and intensively with you to really help design the agenda for the convocation itself. And in the process, I think, really provide an opportunity for you to share thoughts about what the future looks like for the program, and to interact with the advisory council. As our advisory council shared, we'll be working quite intensively on potential funding opportunities, and so for the new entity, and so that requires all of us and all of our ideas, all of our efforts. And so we really see the convocation as not the end and not the beginning, but a real exciting sort of point in time to both celebrate what came before and launch what comes next. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Randy to share more details.
Thank you, Mary. So as Mary mentioned, we have an application that is available for alumni to apply to attend and receive travel funding to attend. The eligibility is simply to be a host or fellow alumni in good standing, and to have the ability to, in your schedule, to be present in Accra, Ghana during the full dates of the convocation. The application to apply is for funding as well as to attend. So it's not a self-funded opportunity. It's you apply to attend as well as to get that funding. The application includes a a field for you to provide a proposal to lead or facilitate an activity. So this really is a participant-driven convocation. We want all of you who are applying to attend to propose a workshop, a session, a plenary, what you think this convocation needs to be of value for all of the attendees. And then we will be able to read through those proposals and be able to kind of put together what that schedule might look like. The deadline for the application is May 19th. The application is open today. Today's the first day that it opened, and we'll be giving you the link to that application in just a moment. So you can get to the application. And then as it's been mentioned in the discussion already, is we're really, driving this alumni sustainability. It's because of all of you and your involvement with the program and your dedication to the program looking forward that we'll be able to continue on beyond Carnegie's involvement and IIE's involvement. And so to help kind of launch this, we will continue to have alumni webinars such as this continuing later this year. And so please stay tuned because we will be having a survey so you can give your input on topics that you'd like to see being prepared and presented, opportunities for you to speak on webinars and participate in them. We also are developing a legacy publication that will be released at the convocation. We have a number of alumni contributors who have authored essays that will be included in the publication about their experience with the CADFP and its impact on them and its impact on their community and university. So we'll be able to share more information on that in the near future. And again, I've mentioned that your participation is key for this application or for this convocation. It's really participant driven. And so when you get to the application, we'll have on there is a FAQ document and a kind of further details on what's required to submit your application. So once you open that application, look through those details. It should answer a lot of the questions that you may be having at this moment as you're hearing me speak. So I encourage you to look through that. And then if you have additional questions, please contact us at our email box and we'll be able to answer any questions that you have. Let's see, I'll open it now for Q&A. So you can go ahead and type questions into the chat box. I really encourage you to ask questions that you might have for our advisory council members because they're here now. We have Phil and Kefa and Alfred on the line. So this is a great opportunity to hear from them about the way forward for the organization, alumni involvement. This is that time to hear from them. Of course, if you have logistical questions about the future convocation, you can ask those here. But I encourage you to take this time to also really learn about how you can be involved with the future entity, fundraising, sustainability, and all of those elements of the future of the CADFP. So I'll give just a moment for folks to type in questions into the Q&A box or the chat, and then I will start reading those questions out to our representatives. Okay, so I've got a question here for our advisory council, and maybe Kefa, you can address this. Question here is, what governance structure is being proposed or considered for the new alumni-led entity? And how will decisions be made collaboratively across such a geographically dispersed community?
Yeah, I think that is one of the issues that we are currently exploring with a consulting group that we are hoping to bring on board to actually see how best to set up something that is both representative, as you had in the opening remarks. We're exploring various options that are available out there. There are other models, as you know, that kind of close to this, and the goal is to see how best to set up something that is actually workable. I also need to mention that between now and even at the convocation itself in Accra, there will also be an opportunity to raise some of these questions, because we're spending the entire year basically figuring out the future of the new entity, and one of those issues is going to be how it will be governed and how it will fundraise and those sorts of things, and how it will be managed, among other things. So at this point, we have initial thoughts, but we have not fully conceptualized or even settled on a particular framework that will be used to run the entity. So this, to me, even this meeting today is the beginning of a time frame that is going to lead to the resolution of some of the questions that you have raised. And of course, there are continuing discussions. Obviously, if you see good models out there that actually we should emulate, I would advise you to, or encourage you to put them in the chat, and we'll obviously take a look at them. But in the end, it's going to be a back and forth between the council and the alumni, so as to get something that is likely to work best for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kefa. And then either Phil or Alfred, you might weigh in on this. Regarding the new entity, do you see that, or does the council see this as continuing to be guided by the advisory council as it stands now, or perhaps in the future, will there be a transition on that front?
Perhaps I will come in on this. Again, as Kefa pointed out, we have not really gotten to a point where we can talk about what the final transition will be. What we know at this point is that the advisory council will guide the process of transition, just moving the establishment of a new body. It is very likely that when that new body, when we set up shop, depending on what the structure will be, then we would go from there. I think that we are talking about a new entity. As Kefa said, there are models. We are not establishing, we are not reinventing the wheel, but definitely we are looking for something that is innovative, given that we are looking at something that covers regions of Africa. We are looking at being able to attend to social intersections. There is so much that we are trying to cover. So I am pretty sure that by the time we come to that stage, there will be a lot of changes, because this will be a new entity. What we know is that we will hold the gird for the transition. Kefa, Alfred, if you have something to say, please go ahead to contribute.
Yeah, I think, Phil, you've put it very, very appropriately, that we are guiding the transition for now, and we are looking at the different models which will be applicable, and which hopefully will be provide a sustainable way of moving forward, and whether at an appropriate stage the alumni will probably have some direct input in that process, is, I guess, why we are engaging now. And there will be opportunity during the convocation and in other forms for us to get as many ideas as possible, so that we as a transition team can then look at it alongside the consultants whom we are bringing on board, to hopefully come up with an appropriate model which will be sustainable in our context. So I think that is really where we are. Thank you.
I think what I would add is the question about the transition in the board. There has actually already been transition even from the beginning of the program. It hasn't been the same advisory council. People have come on and left, and I would expect that the new entity will also have opportunities for people to transition in and out of the whatever advisory body will be set up for the new entity. There are questions here, for example, are they going to be, are we starting with the entire African continent? The answer is we don't know, but it's likely that, for example, there is value in starting with the countries that have already hosted the program and already have a strong alumni base. But as you know, at the end of the day, funding is going to be a key issue. For those of you that are wondering whether Carnegie is driving the transition, Carnegie's funding was always for a proof of concept. It wasn't meant to be permanent. So it's actually both ways. So what is happening here is a case where you remember this is this philanthropic space. It doesn't necessarily fund things that are going to be continually funded from the same source. The goal is normally to try and try out concepts, see whether they work. That was actually the nature of the grant that Professor Zaleza wrote initially. It was basically a proof of concept, and the concept has been proven. Therefore, the time has come to basically think about the long-term sustainability of the proof of concept that has already been established.
Thank you. And here's an interesting question. Maybe Kefa, you might speak to this. Has the advisory council considered intentionally integrating AI across its planning and implementation processes, looking forward to the future of the program, just seeing that AI is increasingly becoming an integral part of every ecosystem? Has that crossed your mind?
No, we are certainly open to all technologies that actually can make our work easier. At this point, we're in the interview phase of particularly interviewing the entity that we hope to bring on, the consultants, and I'm sure that when it comes to the implementation stage, any available technology will be utilized.
Thank you. There's a question here that I will address. Someone has asked, is there a forum such as WhatsApp or Facebook or others where alumni can have constant conversations about the way forward for diasporic involvement in Africa development? So yes, we do have a CADFP alumni WhatsApp group. I am going to be sending out a message later today with the recording from today, as well as the link to the application. So that will include a link to join the WhatsApp group if you haven't already joined it, or if you weren't aware of it. And we also have a LinkedIn alumni group that there will also be a link in there. We have several hundred people in that group right now, but we would like all alumni to be present there. So those forums do exist. So if it sounds like some folks aren't aware of that, so we'll make sure to include those links to join in the messaging that goes out later today. Here is a question I think that's directed towards you, Phil. What strategies are being envisaged to address the identified gaps, with particular emphasis on STEM gaps that I think you mentioned earlier?
Thank you very much. These are some of the discussions that we will be holding with the team, the consultant team. But I really think that this is what comes in when it comes to the doing. At this level, what we begin with will be conceptual. Carnegie obviously implemented for issues of gender equity at the level of level of practice, where we looked at various fields, and we looked at where women were located and where men are located. We did all of that, but what we are looking at here will be, and what we charge this consultant team with, is to come up with some kind of concept. We want a conceptual analysis and a presentation of how these kinds of gaps can be, how we can address them. So it is also a challenge that they are looking at. So we want to see it conceptually, but then we want to go from concept to practice. It is something we are waiting to hear from them. We have our own ideas because we have been in similar situations on adjudication boards where we have various ways of making sure that areas, gaps are identified. I believe that when it comes to doing work like that, it is really something that will be somewhat consultative. It is also, this is where the alumni will come in. I don't think it's something that will be left to only the board and the consultant team. I think that this is where we will have broad discussions about what is missing, what we have, and how we are going to address that. And this is why we say that in many cases, that in many ways, the alumni will be a very good resource here because they have gone far and wide. They are so strategically located to know about some of the issues we are talking about. So I don't think it's something that only the advisory council and the consultant team will come up with. I am looking at broad across the board discussions in identifying these gaps.
Thank you. I've seen a couple questions here regarding logistics for the application, asking how much funding is available. We will be able to fund and accept 60 alumni to attend the convocation this fall. We really want that to be a blend of diaspora alumni and host alumni, and this is attending in person. As Mary mentioned, we really want this to be a hybrid event. So if you are not able to travel, or if your application isn't accepted, there still are going to be opportunities for you to participate in a hybrid way. We're still working on what exactly that will look like, but we do want to be able to involve as many alumni as possible, even if logistically we can only have 60 people in person. So more to come on that. And I have another question here that I would like to address to the advisory council, and it's similar to something that I know was discussed in a recent call that we had with the council. Has the council considered a strategy for building relationships with, quote, African billionaires? This is coming from alumni Henry Bully, and he remembers that at the 2022 alumni convening in Washington, D.C., the African Union representative had alluded to interest from these potential benefactors. And I remember we had a conversation, kind of on this topic the last time we met. I don't know if you have additional thoughts to share on that.
I think right now we're putting that at the place of fundraising and some of the strategies that will be used. And I even saw somebody here mentioning whether we'll be approaching National Science Foundation. We'll be open to any funding sources that will make the program sustainable. And yes, we will be considering these African billionaires. Remember, the philanthropy in Africa, normally we like to give to family and those sorts of things. Western style philanthropy is something that is developing on the continent right now. But we will be very much open to pretty much any funding source that will make the program sustainable. I did see a question whether we want to domesticate it fully in Africa. Initially, I think, although of course we'd end up figuring out things as we go. Initially, the goal is to do a partnership between the Global North and the Global South. But obviously, by the convocation, if we find, for example, we are better off anchoring it fully in Africa, I mean, we are open for ideas at this particular point. Nothing is necessary to completely, set at this particular point.
Thank you, Kefa.
And maybe I can say that we may not be able to answer every question, but certainly we'll take a look at them. And if necessary, if there's going to be some sort of follow-up conversation, I'm sure, Randy, maybe we can figure a way of responding to the questions and maybe sending out some information to attendees.
Yes, we only have a few minutes left, but there will be follow-up communication following today's presentation, and it will include responses to some of these really common questions in here. I see a question here related to the convocation application. In terms of running an activity, is it okay for diaspora fellows to work together with their host to organize one? Yes. So once you get into the application, there will be a field for you to indicate whether your host or diaspora fellow is also planning to attend. There's also space where you are proposing your activity, where you can indicate how many facilitators are being envisioned, whether it's just you, if you'll have a partner, if it will be a team. So that's all items that you can indicate within the application. And yes, we love to see the diaspora and hosts work together to provide a session or activity or workshop for the convocation. I'm seeing a few messages coming in that the application link is not working. I'm not sure, Chris, if you want to enter that in one more time. we've got a bit.ly link that should be working, but I've seen a couple of messages come in that it might not work. Chris, maybe you can put the link in the chat one more time.
It is working, but remember,
It is working. Okay.
sometimes
So
it might be blocked by, whatever, access point you are using. Location might be an issue, but chances are that it can also be sent out from the AAU, for example.
sure. And I've just tried that bit.ly link. If you type in what's on the screen right there, it does work.
Yes.
So like Kefa said, it might be being blocked by your provider, or you might have missed a character there. And I saw a couple of questions regarding the applications for the proposal for the activities. And so we'll have 60 people coming together in person in Accra. Not every proposal for a session will be taking place. So there won't be 60 concurrent sessions happening. We'll build together really strategically using the proposals that come in from those who have been accepted to attend, what might be the best format, and we'll also be in conversation with the advisory council for their guidance. So that way the convocation really meets this vision of launching the way forward for the CADFP. So I do want to be cognizant of time. We have hit at the end of our hour. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to all of our questions, but we will address many of these in an FAQ follow-up document, and that we'll send out to all of today's attendees. I want to give a big thank you to our advisory council members who were able to join today and give insight and information to everyone about the way forward for the CADFP and the future entity and fundraising and partnerships. This is not the last conversation that we will have on this topic. As I mentioned, we'll have future webinars where we'll continue to talk about the way forward. We will share updates with the alumni community. As mentioned, there will be follow-up communication that will include the WhatsApp link and the link to the LinkedIn group. So that way you all can also continue those conversations among yourselves. And the recording from today will also be sent out. So thank you, Kefa. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Alfred, for joining us today. Thank you, Mary,
You're
for your involvement today as well, and for your guidance through this whole process. And thank you to Chris for being on the back end here, responding to chats, helping folks with any technical issues as they've been signing in today.
And I guess maybe, Randy, we can say they can keep the questions coming. We're not suggesting this is the end of the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the
Yes.
WhatsApp group. They have access to, IIE's email. So keep the questions coming.
Yes, yes. There's so many great questions and ideas, and we will be, sharing your ideas with the advisory council. Ask us questions at any time. We're here. This is a continued conversation. Today is not the end of the conversation. So thank you all. I hope you have a great day, and we will see you at our next webinar, and we will be in touch for the future of the presentations.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.